The electorate have had their say and left us with a hung parliament. We're now left with a coalition government, the first time for a good number of years. But what does that really mean? Tobias has successfully been re-elected as the Conservative member for Bournemouth East. So what does he think about all the shenanigans going on in Parliament at the moment? In many ways, although David Cameron did it surprisingly well in the vote, getting the biggest vote since the 1930s or whatever it is for the Conservative Party, it must be slightly disappointing that you didn't get an overall majority.
To get this swing required for us to have a majority is as big a swing that we'd required since 1931. The scale of the problems that we now face to do with the economy, to do with the deep social problems that we face in the UK, and the need for political reform has meant that David Cameron has sought a coalition with the Liberal Democrats. Very unusual, very different type of politics than we've ever experienced before. A lot of readjusting to that form, a lot of getting used to politics as we've not known it before. But I think a requirement if we are to provide stable government and proper leadership to deal with those very problems that I just highlighted.
What most people seem to be amazed by at the moment is the way in which the coalition has come together, the friendliness and everything else that's taking place.
I think and that was the distinction between the discussions between the Labour and the Lib Dems and the Lib Dems and ourselves. A lot of friction developed between the Labour and the Lib Dems. It was a coalition of the losers. It was not including us. It was meaning all the others had to group together. The numbers didn't add up anyway. They would have had to had all the nationalists involved as well. And the nation, I don't think, would have had an appetite for that. Certainly the media, newspapers yesterday condemned the idea that somehow Labour would be allowed to have another Prime Minister in number 10 who hadn't faced the electorate again. So it seemed wise for the Conservatives to see whether there was common ground, and that common ground has been found.
How difficult is it going to be for the Conservative Party and the Liberal Democratic Party to maintain their independence?
Good question. We've had agreement on many issues, which has formed the document of cooperation that we're now seeing laid out in front of us. But there remain some philosophical differences between the parties. The Lib Dems don't have an enthusiasm for replacing Trident. The Lib Dems want to bring in the euro. The Lib Dems have a different view on other aspects of policy. But there is enough overlap for us to actually find cooperation, which means that we can make those big decisions of today.
Do you see that it's going to be difficult to divorce after that period of time?
Well, the focus is on dealing with the situation in Britain today. And so there is now a 5-year plan that's being put forward to come to terms with that. What then happens after that as to where you take Britain? There will be differences of opinion and styles of government which will change as well.
Once you get into the new way of doing politics, can you ever go back to the old way?
The choice is between a hung parliament and a coalition, and then a strong single party within government. The single party, obviously, is the better. But that isn't an option.
And do you think this is going to affect the people in Bournemouth in any way at all? Or is it just is the national picture really that's changed?
It is only the national picture. What happens in the town hall? What's happening here is, because the Conservatives' manifesto is the one that will hog the wicket, if you like, one of those aspects of the manifesto is power moving away from Westminster back down to local levels. Now that means here in Bournemouth, the town hall will receive many more powers, which are currently enjoyed by the Regional Development Agency, for example.
Would you want to go through this process again if we obviously go to a PR form of election? Then presumably this will become the norm.
That is an interesting debate as well. One of the caveats that we've agreed is to offer a referendum, not on PR itself, but actually on the alternative voting system, which simply means that if somebody doesn't get 50% of the vote first time round, the candidates with the lowest number of votes have their votes redistributed. Their second preference is then taken into consideration.
We are promised that there will be a change in the political system with fewer MPs and equal sized constituencies. How's that going to affect us here in the south?
It's likely that the one seat that will be removed is the patchwork quilt of a seat, which is Mid Dorset and Poole North, because that actually grabs numbers of bits of district councils, and so then that will be redistributed between other seats. So I don't think you'll see too much change in Bournemouth East, Bournemouth West will probably take in more of the Poole seat, and the Poole seat itself will take in more of the Mid Dorset seat.
Coalitions are renowned for falling quite soon after they're formed. You're locked in really to a 5-year one. Do you see it lasting 5 years?
I'm currently optimistic. A lot of it has to do with the relationship, the biology, if you like, between the chemistry, between the two senior figures. And in this case, it's Nick Clegg and David Cameron. And we've already seen today in some of the interviews that they've held together that they already developed a very strong relationship itself.
Like any love affair, freshly started, things are going well for the Liberal and Conservative coalition. But will it last for 5 years? I guess the only way to find out is to wait and see. This is Steve Parsell reporting for Vision News South.